So when we're looking at villain's range on the river, you can see 25 combos folding. If you have the King of Hearts in your hand, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 folding combos that disappear. What's up? This is Uri for Guerrilla Poker, back after a short break due to my throat issues. Hope you guys enjoyed the videos from Jeff. The idea I had for this video is to take a simple concept and distill it in a way where everyone would understand, and the concept I want to talk about today is blockers. Blockers in poker is a term you hear said quite a lot, I think, these days. A lot of people speak about blockers for decisions, and it comes to the point where everyone knows. I often, when I play live games, some random guy goes all in on the river and I fold and he's like, I had the blockers, I had the blocker. It's a big thing in PLO and it's a big thing in Hold'em. So what I'm going to show today is that blockers in Hold'em work very differently than blockers in PLO, and they actually work different than a lot of people understand. I'm going to show this with a very simple example, and the concepts we're going to talk about are good blockers and bad blockers. Blockers are generally in poker something that justifies taking an action on the river. The reason for that being, by the river, ranges get narrow. When ranges are very narrow, the fact that you're holding a specific card can have a large effect on the other person's range. Imagine, for example, a villain is calling you on the river with 20 combinations of cards, and you hold the King of Hearts, and suddenly that becomes 16 combinations. You've cut down his calling frequency by 20%. On the flop, the same King of Hearts would have a much smaller effect. Still an effect, but you know, there's a lot of other things going on. While on the river, no more cards are left. When you're picking your bluffs, you definitely want to go by blockers. So what's the concept of like a good blocker or a bad blocker? What I mean by this is that when you're bluffing on the river, you can block villain's call down range. This is what I call a good blocker. Or you can block his folding range. This is a bad blocker. Either one affects your EV, right? If, you know, flush came in and I have a heart, that's less flushes for my opponent. I block his call down range. If flush missed and I have a heart, that's less busted flush draws for him to fold, and I block his folding range. So we have good blockers and bad blockers. What most people I talk to, I see them doing, is being very focused on having good blockers. Take this hand as an example. This is a 3-bet pot, big blind versus button. It came ace, 10, 4, 6, 7. Hero 2-barreled, got to the river, and he needs to make a bluffing decision on the river. And we're going to look at several combos. People who are very focused on having good blockers might be like, okay, 10, 4, 6, 7. Oh, I could have an 8 or a 9 blocking the straight. That would be a good blocker. This is a completely wrong use of the good blocker idea. Sure, you block the straight, but your opponent can't really have the straight anyway, or if he would, it would be a very marginal part of his range. So an 8 or a 9 is not really a good blocker. Slightly more advanced player might say, well, Queen Jack is maybe a good blocker because you block Ace Queen and Ace Jack, which are in villain's calling range. But even that is not necessarily correct, because you also block hands like Queen Jack and Queen 10, Jack 10, Pocket Queens, Pocket Jacks, Queen Jack, King Jack. You block a bunch of stuff when you have Queen Jack, so it's not very clear what a good blocker would be here on the river. You can see this when we bluff the river and we look at villain's folding range. You see villain calling every top pair and 2-pair plus, and the 8-9 of hearts, which we spoke about. And what's a good blocker here? Personally, I really wouldn't be sure, but I am sure what's a bad blocker. And when you look at the folding range, all of these hands are mostly hearts. Hearts are folding, busted hearts are folding, and having a heart is a bad blocker. So when we're looking at villain's range on the river, you can see 25 combos folding. If you have the King of Hearts in your hand, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 folding combos that disappear. So you get 20% less fold equity just by virtue of having something like the King of Hearts. How does this work in EV? Solvers give you a very direct answer, but this is something you can calculate with an Excel sheet or a pen and paper. When we look at the EV of bluffing certain combos, you guys can see King Queen of Hearts would lose 5.5 big blinds bluffing the river, while King Queen of Spades would win 1.5 big blinds. So a really huge difference between those two. Similarly, King Queen offsuit, all the combos with a heart would make losing river bluffs, all the combos without a heart would make winning river bluffs. Similar with Queen Jack. Queen Jack is a bit closer, but with a heart is either slightly losing or break even, and without a heart is winning a lot. So maybe this is due to blocking ace queen off and ace jack off, but we can see that the bad blocker is actually a lot more relevant than the good blocker in terms of the effect that we have here. Because anything without a bad blocker is fine to bluff, right? Like jack 8 of spades, if we got here with it, would be just as good as queen jack offsuit. All the hands are fine to bluff unless they have hearts. So, good blocker, bad blocker, in no limit hold'em, very often the answer to do I bluff the river or not is do I have bad blockers? If you don't have bad blockers, you can go ahead and bluff. If you do have bad blockers, you need to be very careful. Now, just to drive this point in a little bit, I want to talk about what do the EV numbers mean? What does it mean to lose 5.5 big blinds bluffing king, queen of hearts, or lose, say, 4 big blinds bluffing king of hearts, queen of spades? Like we said, the king of hearts is the more important heart not to hold, but all the hearts are bad. How bad is it? Because when we look at the pot, after we bet and get called, the pot is going to be 200 big blinds. So in the heat of the moment, you either get a call or you get a fold. Does the fact that this play is 3 big blinds better or 5 big blinds better than another play really make a big difference? It's an important question to ask and to understand the answer to. This is one of the most deceptive things about poker. When you're playing poker, win rates tend to be measured in BB per 100, how many big blinds you win per 100 hands. Online, the very best players generally don't win more than 10 big blinds per 100. I think even a win rate of 10 big blinds per 100 is very rare. If you look at legendary online players like OTB Red Baron and Linus Love, I would guess their win rates are somewhere in the 6 to 7 BB per 100 area. Now, here we're talking about potentially a 5 big blind mistake in a very basic spot, and these spots come up all the time. So when we're thinking about, overall, you win some all-ins, you lose some all-ins, you catch some bluffs, you get bluffed, like all these things happen all the time. And in the end, every 100 hand, you end up with 7 big blinds. This is a chance to win another 5 or lose another 5. So this is actually really, really important to your bottom line. It adds up a lot. And this could even make the difference between you being a winning player or a losing player. As ridiculous as it sounds, just the ability to give up when you have bad blockers in these spots is winning us between 2 and 5 big blinds per hand. And like I said, river spots where you might have bad blockers come up all the time, over and over and over again. Here we have just the very basic example of like why you don't bluff with a busted flush draw. But wanted to drive this point in a little bit for you guys, and hopefully this helps to illustrate the concept. Okay, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it's kind of a basic concept, but I think it's still important, and I still see a lot of people get this a little bit wrong. Like and subscribe to the channel. We have lots of great videos here that I recommend you guys watch across a variety of subjects. If you haven't, check out the Guerrilla Poker website. We have a course about how to improve your red line by yours truly. We have pre-flop ranges, GTO pre-flop ranges, extremely, extremely important. And I will see you next time.